The handheld console market has gone through a renaissance after the incredible success of the Nintendo Switch. While Sony and Microsoft haven't responded in kind, we have seen a surprising insurgence of competitors from the PC gaming segment. Perhaps one of the most unexpected parties to throw its hat into the ring was Valve with its Steam Deck. The combination of bespoke software tailored around the company's Steam store and reasonable quality hardware at an affordable price meant that the Steam Deck was an instant success for many. Not willing to continue watching from the sidelines, Asus has now decided to join the fray with the ROG Ally. Like some of the other players in the market, Asus has gone with the approach of packing in the complete Windows 11 operating system. This means you are no longer tied to downloading games from just Steam and essentially have a full Windows PC with an incredibly compact form factor. Add to that the brand new AMD Ryzen Z1 series processors, a 120Hz VRR display, and customary ROG flashing lights, and we have a recipe for a rather intriguing device. The ROG Ally has fairly simple packaging with mostly just the console and the power brick in the box. The charger, no doubt plucked from one of Asus's notebooks, has a rather long and heavy cable, which feels awkward to use and carry around for a device the size of the Ally. There is also a small stand for the console hidden under the lid of the box. It is seemingly made out of paper and very flimsy. Ours crumpled and couldn't support the console's weight after a while. The ROG Ally features a standard handheld game console form factor with a display in the middle and split controls on the side. We are no longer in the era of split dual displays and folding hinges of early Nintendo handhelds, nor are there any detachable Joy-Cons a la the Switch. Depending upon how you look at it, you could say it's less gimmicky or perhaps that it is less imaginative. The ROG Ally has a clean and somewhat reserved design for an ROG product. The entire body is made up of two pieces of hard plastic shell for the front and the back. There are a few different textures here, the most common one being a fine-grain finish to give it a matte appearance. The grips on the side have a more coarse grain pattern for additional grip, and the back has a few different wavy patterns. For the controls, the ROG Ally goes for a layout that is similar to the Xbox wireless controller. You get 4 face or action buttons that have the familiar ABXY designation. The D-pad on the left is placed below the left joystick, which may trip some people, but never bothered this reviewer even after many years of going back and forth between Xbox and PlayStation controllers. The view and menu buttons are placed on either side of the display, along with dedicated buttons for Asus software features. On top of the device are the shoulder and trigger buttons with a textured finish. And finally, on the back are 2 additional assignable grip buttons. All the buttons and joysticks on our review unit worked fine. The face buttons work just as well as on a proper Xbox controller with a good amount of travel and tactility. The D-pad was also very good if you leave aside the extremely glossy finish that makes it look incredibly dirty all the time. The joysticks could have used more grip around the edges, but otherwise worked well. The bumper and trigger buttons are also well designed. The bumper had a shorter throw as usual with a more clicky feedback, and the trigger had longer travel, although not as much as on proper controllers. Still, both felt good to use, although they lacked the haptic feedback functionality of the Xbox wireless controller. The additional assignable buttons on the back are something I was less sure about. I never really felt a particular need to use them in the games I played, since most modern games are quite good at spreading the controls around on the standard buttons. I also found them very easy to press unintentionally, and even when not assigned, they would often interfere with gameplay. I feel like Asus could have made these harder to press accidentally. The ROG Ally is a lot smaller and lighter than the Steam Deck. It never feels quite as daunting in hand and is much easier to hold for extended periods without support or to carry around in a bag. The downside of this is that it's also a bit less grippy. The Steam Deck has substantial grips that let your fingers have something to grab onto, while the ROG Ally grips are somewhat shallow. It was a necessary trade-off to ensure the ROG Ally remains compact, but those with larger hands will find the Steam Deck more comfortable. The ROG Ally does have RGB lighting, but it's only limited to the rings around the joysticks. Each ring only has 2 zones, but the colors blend in well together. The lighting can get extremely bright, way brighter than the display itself, but fortunately, it is set to a much lower level out of the box and can be disabled completely. You can also set the lighting to sync with your music, compatible games, or also CPU temperature or usage. The top of the device has a lot going on. There is a power button that also doubles as the fingerprint scanner. Then there are 2 status LEDs for charging and power right next to the volume controls. A large port features a proprietary Asus connector for external GPUs along with a USB-C connector. Finally, there is a microSD card slot and a headphone jack. Aside from the power button and the easy-to-accidentally press grip buttons, there isn't a lot to complain about the ROG Ally. It is relatively compact, lightweight, and well-built. Most of the other physical controls work well, and the device also looks nice, if that is something that matters to you. Overall, a solid effort from Asus in the design department. We will come back with part 2. Thanks for watching and please subscribe our channel.